Pressure cooker time, NFC division by division. Let's begin with the division that sucks most of the oxygen out of the room, primarily because of the Dallas Cowboys, the NFC East. Who do you have?
Well, let's start there with the Cowboys, right? I'll go with Mike McCarthy because he's going into the last year of his contract. You know, it doesn't seem like they have much or any inclination to extend him. And look, the Cowboys did not do a lot to improve their roster over the course of this offseason. They did get the deal done finally with CeeDee Lamb, but I mean, if the Cowboys do not get off to a good start this year, then things are going to get very, very loud very, very quickly for Mike McCarthy. And I don't know that Jerry Jones would make a coaching change in season, especially because Dan Quinn is not there any longer, and you don't have that guy who is the natural successor to a Mike McCarthy on the coaching staff. But, I mean, if things don't go well for Mike McCarthy, then it's going to be curtains for him in Dallas. And I think that does put a lot of pressure on him, Mike.
They got Mike Zimmer. I mean, Mike Zimmer, with the quotes he gave recently about the Vikings and Rick Spielman, let's put him back on the sideline as the head coach. I want entertainment, and it would be entertaining to have Zimmer as the interim head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I thought about McCarthy initially, but let me try this on you. And I feel like we've had this conversation before because you're not familiar with The Simpsons. You weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons, which is fine. I can understand why. It's not exactly the show that I would have wanted my son to watch in that same time frame. But with McCarthy, there's a certain point where the pressure is so obvious that you get used to it. It reminds me of when Bart Simpson asked his Sunday school teacher, do you eventually get used to hell? Is it like a hot bathtub? So I feel like McCarthy in this hot bathtub eventually gets used to the pressure and it just becomes part of who he is. I think the guy under less obvious and thus maybe more pressure is Nick Sirianni. We had the conversation yesterday about Eagles players popping off about going to Brazil. It's like, hey, if this guy's doing his job, if they're listening to him, if they respect him, they're not running out of the meeting room when he says, this is our job, this is what we do, all the cliches that he spewed on Sunday, it works. You have your guys on the same page. And there's a question of, does he have his guys on the same page? Can he keep them on the same page? How much of these guys are freelancing? Has anything changed from last year? How responsible was he for the collapse? And what really has been done to avoid it this year? I think, look, you could even throw Brian Daboll in this mix too, because Bill Belichick is hovering over that division. And one of those three teams is possibly going to hire him between the Giants, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. And it could be that John Mara just decides, I'm cleaning house because if Belichick's going to land in one of those other two spots, I want him here.
I want him. Yes. Yeah. I thought about Sirianni too, and I almost broke the game in the initial aspect of it by making it a tie. But I think, you bring up Brian Daboll, that's a dark horse because, I mean, you're kind of one hand tied behind your back when Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback, and that's not a great situation. And then your best player now plays for the Philadelphia Eagles in Saquon Barkley. So that definitely ratchets up the pressure. And, you talk about the fact that Bill Belichick's looming. That also does too. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys under some pressure there in the NFC East, I would say.
By the way, you wouldn't have broken the game. If you had picked Sirianni, I would have picked McCarthy.
See, well, I know, but no, what I was saying is that I
come to the table with two. Oh, okay. All right. That would have broken. Yeah, you got to pick
exactly.
one. You got to pick one.
Exactly.
Okay. NFC North. You got to pick one. Who are you picking in the NFC North?
Give me Matt Eberflus because I think especially because he's a defensive-minded head coach, right? And you've got somebody in Caleb Williams who, you don't want to call him the savior because that's putting too much pressure on the kid, but that's really what he is. They made that trade with the Panthers. They gained the #1 overall pick, and then you pick this guy who's shown some special qualities when he's been out there on the field. All right, so because of that, and because they were not, a crappy team that inherited the #1 overall pick because of that, last year the Bears, especially toward the end of the season, were playing some really darn good defense. You bring in guys that can support Caleb Williams offensively. I think they got a really good offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron. Obviously, you bring in Keenan Allen, and then you draft Rome Odunze. That team needs to be competitive, if not flat out good, for them to then think, all right, yeah, Matt Eberflus can get this done. I think he will be able to do it, but I think that there is a significant amount of pressure on him to make sure that this thing gets off to a smooth start, the Caleb Williams era.
I believe, and there's a chance that I'm misremembering, that for every division we've done so far, I've picked a coach or a GM. I'm going to break that trend. My selection is Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold. And it's very simple. He will never be as set up for narrative-changing success as he is now. You could say, well, career got off to a bad start because I was playing for the Jets. And the Jets have ruined many a quarterback. They possibly would have even ruined Patrick Mahomes if they'd been given the chance to do it. And then I went to the Panthers, which are currently one of the most dysfunctional teams in all of the National Football League. He got thrust into the rule mismatch as a head coach, and that didn't work. That was a lost 2 seasons for him. Last year, he didn't play at all in San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan loved him. He might have gotten a shot. Remember when Brock Purdy had the concussion from the Monday night game? We thought we were going to see Sam Darnold on that following Sunday against the Bengals, but Purdy somehow got cleared on a 6-day turnaround. We didn't see him. This is his chance now. Their offensive line is good enough. Oh, Justin Jefferson is on the team. Oh, Jordan Addison is on the team. TJ Hawkinson will be back at some point. Aaron Jones, when healthy, is one of the better running backs in the NFL. There's no excuse now. And you have a coach who is one of the great game planners and play callers in the NFL. If Sam Darnold is seeing ghosts now, he's done. He's done. He may be able to hang around as a number 2 or a number 3, but this is his, and he's still only like 28. This is his last best chance to prove to the NFL that he belongs under center on a regular basis.
It's interesting because I thought about Sam Darnold too, but I think that in a lot of ways the pressure is really not on him because he's not supposed to be there. So for me, it's almost like he's kind of playing with house money. And that's where it's like, is that pressure? Is it not pressure? I mean, from your side, when you're saying it's his last best shot, yeah, I guess it is. But also that, to me, I mean, to use the Bart Simpson example, right? I mean, I guess it sort of makes him a little bit more free in that way. And yeah, when you're throwing it to Justin Jefferson, man, like things should go well for you. And if they don't, then that's on you. So I see where you're going with that.
But it's a rare situation where, yes, from an external perspective, there is no pressure because J.J. McCarthy's injured, so nobody expects anything from Sam Darnold this year. From his own career perspective, I mean, the fact that nobody expects anything from him underscores that it's been not good for him since he arrived at as the third overall pick in 2018. This is his chance to change it. And if he doesn't do it now, he's going to be perennial backup. This is the year to turn it around, and even though comeback player of the year probably not available to him any longer thanks to Shereen Williams. They've implemented the Shereen Williams you can't come back from sucking rule, but he'll be that kind of guy potentially that all of a sudden we're like, whoa, what the hell? Who is this guy? Kind of like a Ryan Tannehill type of a transformation, although Tannehill was better than Darnold early in his career. But that's one of those like, whoa, one of those moments where we're all like, whoa, we didn't expect this. This is his chance to become that guy, which unlocks potential millions in earnings. All right, let's pivot to the NFC South. Myles, who do you have there?
Give me Bryce Young, in part because, you know what, if we know one thing about David Tepper, he's not afraid to pull the plug and, put that thing in another outlet.
Or throw the drink.
Yes, yeah, or that too. And, if you put drinks and plugs, that really could end in disaster. But I just feel like, last year things were not set up well for Bryce Young. I think we all understand that. I mean, they had the Frankenstein offense with Frank Reich and then also Thomas Brown coming from two different philosophies, and it clearly did not work. But, going into this year now with Canales as his head coach, got to see something from Bryce Young because, like I said, even though he was the number 1 overall pick and they traded up to get that thing, you don't know what the hell David Tepper is going to want to do in order to try to solve the quarterback position if it doesn't appear to be Bryce Young after the first 2 years. So I think that does put him under a significant amount of pressure. The offense should be better this year. I don't know how it could be much worse. So that should help them. They've got a couple more weapons. I think Leggett should be really good for them. But like I said, it's just because of everything that we know that David Tepper has done and how unpredictable he can be. I think this is a really, really, really significant year for Bryce Young.
I was tempted to go with someone from the Saints, whether it be Derek Carr, who's in essentially the year that is up or out for his contract. They can move on from him after this season. He's been there and done that before. He's lived through that. Dennis Allen, I mean, they've been calling for him to get fired for, I don't know, ever since he got hired. I think that the owner there is very patient and believes in continuity. So I pivoted to my good friend Kirk Cousins, just because of the circumstance that he's in. 36, coming off of the torn Achilles tendon, with your successor drafted in the top 10 before you've ever even officially worn the helmet. I mean, at least Aaron Rodgers had been with the Packers for 15 years before they drafted his replacement. You have just shown up. They're issuing your employee badge. You're filling out the HR forms, and in walks the guy who's going to replace you. Are you kidding me? And it puts pressure on Cousins to come out and pick up where he left off last year. Because what's going to happen? If Kirk Cousins struggles at all, what's going to happen? The media, the fans, the players in the locker room. Let's see what Michael Penix can do. So there is a ton of pressure on Kirk Cousins to come out and not just be healthy, but be who he was last year with a new coaching staff, with new weapons.
Yeah.
I don't know that what last year was the culmination of his time with Kevin O'Connell is something that translates to starting off hot and staying hot when the guy that's going to replace you at some point after this year, after next year, maybe during this year, who knows, is sitting there waiting, antsy, ready to play.
If there is one positive of that aspect of things, it's that he's going from one system to another similar offensive system, right? Kevin O'Connell came from the Rams, coached under Sean McVay. Zach Robinson, who is the new offensive coordinator there under Raheem Morris in Atlanta, also came from the LA Rams under Sean McVay. So you'd think that there would be some sort of offensive continuity there, but still you're playing with different guys, different weapons, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Those are very talented guys, but you still have to be able to get those live snaps and that live chemistry established. We'll see if that happens quickly.
That's a great point. I mean, the similarities in offense will be an advantage. I remember last year at the scouting combine, Kevin O'Connell being very effusive and enthusiastic about the fact that for the first time ever, Kirk Cousins had the same voice in his helmet for 2 straight years. And look at what it did when you go O'Connell 2022 into 2023, even though they started off slowly, they were having a lot of turnovers, a lot of games that fell their way. The prior year weren't falling their way. Last year, Cousins was still playing really well, and he had arguably the best game of his career on that Monday night against the 49ers 6 days before the Achilles tendon went, and that was that. All right, NFC West, who do you have?
Kyler Murray, because what has he done? And I know that he's been dealing with the injury for the last couple seasons. Even before that, I mean, the Cliff Kingsbury era was not very impressive to me when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals. But I think this is one of those years where you got to say, all right, let's get the show on the road. Let's show that the great manifesto of the 2022 offseason can really pay some dividends at this point when it comes to Kyler Murray. I think this is a guy that is not even thrown for 30 touchdowns at any point in his career. I want to see more from him, and I think that there's not necessarily pressure on Jonathan Gannon, who I think did a pretty all right job, last year, given the circumstances of the roster, the fact that your quarterback didn't play until more than halfway through the year and all that. But I think that there is some pressure on Kyler Murray here because we just have not seen him be a great quarterback yet in his career.
And they've got to be getting close to the point. I'm going to try to multitask here and pull this up. They've got to be getting close to the point where they can move on from Kyler Murray with manageable cap consequences, minimal guaranteed money owed to him, because we're getting deeper and deeper into that contract, third year of that long-term contract. I thought about Murray, my fallback, and I don't know if it's fallback. It's about co-equal Geno Smith in Seattle. The contract he signed after his first year as a starter, 3 years, $100 million. Well, then you guys are like, well, it's 3 years, $75 million, with about $25 million in incentives. And, oh, wait, look, it's year to year, because they can get out of it after any given year. They chose to keep him after 2023. They have Sam Howell, who John Schneider, the GM of the team, was gushing about after they traded for him. He started 17 games last year. One of the not many quarterbacks in the NFL who started every regular season game for his team, threw for a lot of yards, gave the Seahawks fits when the Commanders traveled up there for a regular season game. So they've got their guy in-house, and they've got the opportunity to go anywhere they want after this year. New head coach. Now, it's kind of weird because new GM wants his own coach, new coach wants his own quarterback. GM has been there since 2010, but John Schneider, fully in charge now, hires Mike Macdonald. It creates a scenario where they may go in a different direction at quarterback if Geno Smith doesn't play well enough. And it's that simple. And there was some talk that maybe he wanted greater security, a new contract, whatever. He's feeling it. He understands. He's on a year-to-year arrangement, and it may be week to week with Sam Howell there as they break in this new coaching staff if Geno Smith doesn't perform at a high level.
Yeah, it could be week to week or minute by minute, or you know what? Maybe Mike Macdonald wants to take that quarterback search to the streets once they get to the offseason. We never know.
Well done. Any more you can think of?
I was really scrambling to find taking it to the streets.
I keep forgetting.
Before we got that there. Yeah, I know.
Okay, you have a chance to win $1 million in the NBC sweepstakes on Yahoo Fantasy. Just download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/fantasymillion for additional details. What are you waiting for?
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.